Hello everyone and welcome back to my Leagues guides. Today we're going to be talking about the ranged relic and how you should build around it. This is the day before League, so if I seem really excited, I am. I can't wait to get into it. So these are some of the things that you really need to get set in your mind before you jump into Leagues if you are choosing the ranged relic. So come along with me and let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to worry about is obviously the Rune crossbow. So this is going to be your weapon of choice up until you can get either an ACB and ZCB or twisted bow, either way. But Rune crossbow is going to be your go-to for pretty much the entire Leagues until the end game. Now, the Rune crossbow is not actually that easy to acquire. However, fortunately, there's multiple ways of getting it. So the Rune crossbow itself, the fully completed version, Kriara, Crazy Archaeologist, or an Elite Casket. None of the shops that, quote, sell it have it in stock, so you're going to have to get it as a drop. So really, the only realistic one here is Crazy Archaeologist. So if you're part of the Wilderness Gang, you guys are rejoicing right now, but that will not be me, and probably won't be 99% of you guys. So if you can't get the strung version, what about the unstrung version? So this will require 69 fletching, which would actually be, 57 if you're choosing Production Prodigy because of the plus 12 boost. And you also need a U stock, which itself requires 69 fletching, but you also have to get U logs, so you need the woodcutting level, etc., etc. But how about the drops? So unfortunately, once again, the only drops for an unstrung Rune crossbow, you got the Ancient Wizard, which this is actually from Clues, so that's probably out. Skeletal Wyvern, which I think is, 72 Slayer, so probably out. And Ancient Wyvern, which is 82 Slayer, so probably out. So unstrung Rune crossbow, not that easy to come by either. So the only thing left for the people who don't want to get 72 Slayer and don't want to pick Wilderness are the Runite limbs. Now you can smith these, but we're not really counting that. That's so late game, it's not worth it. And then the drop table, to be honest, there's one clear pick here, and that's the Deranged Archaeologist. I mean, if you wanted to, the Steel Dragons do have good drop rates of 1 out of 16. Aviancies aren't that bad, and they're, not that bad to kill, but, you have to have God items. So really, Deranged Archaeologist is going to be the key pick here, unless you really want to go kill Iron or Steel Dragons or something, or KBD. But so this is going to be how you get your Rune crossbow. Runite limbs, going to need a U stock, and then you're going to need a crossbow string, and you will get your hands on a Rune crossbow. Keep in mind, like I said, 69 fletching, 57 if you're picking Production Prodigy. Okay, so talking ammunition next. This is the next thing you're going to have to sort out. So we'll discuss adamant bolts first, because this will be your rubies and your diamonds until you can do, dragon bolts. But assuming you don't get those, we'll cover adamant bolts. So unfinished, there's only one source, and that's an adamant dragon. So assuming you're not killing that, then you're going to want to go for the finished version. And there are quite a few sources here, but some of them are much better than others. So first off, and in my opinion, by far the best option, Spoils of War from Soul Wars. 200 to 400, they're pretty common. You're going to be getting a lot of zeal. I think it's capped at 30 zeal per game. And keep in mind, it does cost 30 tokens for one spoil. So this has a lot of good stuff on it. However, you only get one per game. I believe they did confirm that in the League's Discord, that you are still capped at 30 zeal tokens per game, which means one Spoils of War per game. But regardless, when you do roll them, you get 200 to 400. So with the ammo saving ability, this will last you a while. There's some other options. You got Sepulchre, you got the Hallowed Sack, which is from Sepulchre. You've got the Spiritual Ranger for Zeros, drops 15. Iron Dragons again. Skeletal Wyverns drop a fair amount, but once again, you got to have 72 Slayer for that. Some random Tarn's Lair drop there. But yeah, pretty much like Sepulchre, Spoils of War. That's pretty much it. Unless you want to get one at a time from Tortured Gorillas. Okay, and also discussing Runite bolts, which you would think, I'm not going to use that, but actually you are, because Onyx bolts are going to be insanely good here. And with the Fire Sale Relic, which I will be choosing, and I recommend Rangers to choose that as well, you'll be able to get infinite Onyx bolts. So, Runite bolts unfinished. Once again, you can smith them if you want. or you got Rune Dragons. Whisper actually drops quite a few, or Cerberus. The finished versions, however, I should have mentioned on the other one. Finished version will cost 69 to make, 69 fletching if you have the unfinished, but you'll have Rune Crossbow at this point anyways, and you're probably fletching that, so it shouldn't be an issue. But the finished version, once again, Spoils of War is probably going to be your best option. It's 100 to 200 at a time. Still, same rarity as Adamant Bolts. Still costs 30 tokens for one of these. So it's 3 rolls, so it's basically 1 out of 6. So every 6 crates, you'll average, what, 150? So, you know, whether or not that's good odds to you, that is to be decided. But that's basically 6 games of Soul Wars for 150 Runite Bolts, if my math is accurate there, which is not that... It doesn't sound that great, however, if you know, you're going to have good ammo saving capabilities anyways. So hopefully that should last you a long time. Other options, what do we got? Ancient Wizard from Clues. We've got, once again, Sepulchre seems really good for bolts here if you do go Mauritania. Demonic Gorillas drop a pretty good amount. Kriara, Corp, Mithril Dragons, Steel Dragons, nothing really worthwhile. You got Skeletal Wyverns, drop a fair amount, and then you got all the Gnome Delivery. And the other wyverns as well, ancient wyverns, all that, which these all require 82 Slayers, so that's pretty late game. Okay, and also quickly we're going to discuss the bolt tips, because gems might be a little hard to come by, depending on what regions you pick, especially, so we'll discuss diamond bolt tips quickly. You know, assuming you don't have just straight up diamonds, you can actually get a fair amount of bolt tips from certain monsters, so even the mutated and warped terrorbirds here drop pretty commonly 24 to 32 bolt tips, which is not bad, especially if you want the scepter. Grotesque Guardians actually drop a lot, 100 to 150. Vorkath drops a little bit, and then it gets pretty bad near the bottom here. So not too many great options, but just an idea if you don't want to farm diamonds somehow. Because diamonds actually aren't that easy to come by. So like cut diamonds here, for instance, what you got... TOA is actually a diamond printer, but, you know, you have to do TOA to get them. Vorkath drops a little bit. There's a bunch of small sources, but it's kind of a thing you accumulate over time. It's hard to get a lot really, really quickly because nothing actually sells diamonds. As far as uncut diamonds, it's not that much better. Once again, Spoils of War, though, so if you do Soul Wars for bolts, this is a good idea because you'll also get a chance at a small chunk of diamonds, but you know, it's every little bit counts. And keep in mind that each diamond cuts into 12 bolt tips. So even if you only get, like, let's say, what, 15 diamonds, quick maths here, that's 180 bolt tips, even if you only get 15. So once again, Soul Wars is probably going to be your best option. But yeah, there's some other, you know, Laren's chests, Brimstone chests, gauntlets, what we got next? Ancient chests from, this is from Cox. You get a lot of diamonds from there. Some of the DT2 bosses drop a lot of gems. Volcano, KQ, Callisto, Vedion. I mean, there's a ton of options here, but in my opinion, once again, Soul Wars is coming in clutch. Or you could do a bag full of gems from Motherlode Mine, but who the hell wants to do Motherlode Mine in leagues? Ruby bolt tips, kind of same deal. You got Crystal Implings, you got Vorkath, you know, whatever. Nothing too special here, but cut rubies, you're going to find a little bit better of an option. Once again, TOA, make sure to do your randoms. Pinball's pretty good for that. DT2 bosses, nothing much there. And then we go to uncut gems, and you'll suddenly look a little bit better. So, like, once again, Spoils of War, 15 to 30 uncut rubies. Very big. Motherlode Mine, Gauntlet, Brimstone, Laren's, pretty much the same drop table as diamonds. You probably just get slightly more or slightly more common with rubies. So nothing too bad. Basically, DT2 bosses, wilderness bosses, raids, gauntlet, and as well as the like loot chests, Laren's, Brimstones, and Spoils of War. Okay, and finally, what arguably will be actually the most important bolt tip are the Onyx bolt tips. People don't really know about Onyx bolts because usually it's not really worth using them because they're worth so much money and, you know, you don't usually end up with that many. However, So number one, it costs 73 fletching to turn Onyx into bolt tips, and you get 24 per Onyx. But to be acquiring them, you're going to be buying them from the store. So they buy separately. So there's a bunch of drops here, like Scotizo, you know, but when they drop very, very few. So, like, you know, some of these things, like Scotizo and Zalcano, are probably some of the best ones, or some of the wildy bosses. But a lot of them are going to be, like, as you can see here, 4, 3 to 6, 5 to 10, 3 to 6. Leviathan actually drops a ton. Vorkath drops a little meager amount, but overall, drops is probably not going to be your best option. The best option is going to be the store. So you can buy them for 1,500. Keep in mind, you can buy Keep in mind that you can buy an Onyx for, what was it, 260,000 Tokkul, which turns into 24 bolt tips. So if you do some quick maths here, that is 10,833 Tokkul per bolt tip. But since these sell at 1,500 per, you can get a much better deal on that. And so it's still going to be hard to acquire this unless you take fire sale. So if you take fire sale and you're selling death runes for Tokkul, you can just stock up on Onyx bolt tips, slap those on your rune bolts, and you're going to have some of the best bolts in the game. So already off the bat, Onyx bolts give you a +5 range strength boost, but the important part is when you enchant these bad boys. So they get the life leech effect. Like I'm saying, I bet a lot of people don't even know this because people hardly ever use Onyx bolts. So number one, it deals 20% extra damage, 32% with the ZCB, and heal the attacker's hit points by 25% of the total damage dealt. Does not work on the undead. That's a little key side note there. So, under normal circumstances, 11% chance of activating, not counting the hard Kandarin, 12% with hard Kandarin. So if you're taking range relic, this is going to be 22% chance of activating, which means basically 1 out of every 4 to 5 shots, you're going to be proccing something that will heal you and also deals 20% extra damage. So let's take a look real quick at all of the enchanted bolts and just kind of get an idea of what we're aiming for with our build, because there's a lot of different directions you could go here. So the first thing to keep in mind here is that not all bolt procs are dependent on you actually landing a hit. So let's take ruby bolts for instance. You don't have to pass the accuracy roll to land a ruby bolt proc. So you could proc even if your accuracy isn't that good. Same with rubies, same with diamonds. Onyx bolts do not follow this rule, which means if you're going to be proccing, so diamond bolts have a, 10% without hard Kandarin. Let's do without. 20% with the relic, 20% chance of proc, 1 out of every 5. So if this is ignoring the accuracy rolls, you could opt to go for void even over like Missouri, because the accuracy may not be that important since you're going to be proccing a lot anyways. However, I still think it's probably worth it to go with the more accurate approach, especially since you're probably going to be using Onyx bolts, and I recommend using Onyx bolts most of the time anyways, because Onyx bolts are reliant on landing a hit. So 11% without hard Kandarin, 22% with the ranged relic, but you do have to land the hit, which means it is worth your time to get all the extra accuracy from Missouri and, you know, the prayers, because having higher accuracy will result in a much better chance and ultimately more damage than just wearing void. So yeah, basically your 3 go-tos are going to be rubies, diamonds, and onyx. These are the main 3 you should be using, but that also brings me to the point of dragon bolts. Okay, so dragon bolts. Whether or not this will make or break your account is hard to say. I don't think they're that important that you'll die if you don't get, but it could be a pretty significant DPS increase if you can source a consistent supply of dragon bolts. So there's not that many places you can get them from. You basically got The Ancient Vault from DT2, which, by the way, Smoke Quartz is from Leviathan, so Leviathan will give you that. So will Vorkath. He drops them fairly commonly, 50 to 100. Muspah gives 89, so Fremennik will be eating if you do want to go Fremennik for Dragon Bolts. Next drops them 12 to 90. Leviathan drops a lot, but it's 1 out of 50, so if you pick Desert, then you will have this option, and then you got Adamant and Rune Dragon. So it's pretty much Fremennik, Desert. I guess you could do Nex and get bolts, but really I feel like Desert and Kandrin are going to be, or excuse me, Desert and Fremennik are going to be the main go-tos here. So in the standard case of most people probably picking Zaya, Asgarnia, Desert, Leviathan's going to be your go-to if you want Dragon Bolts. Okay, so now let's discuss armor. In my opinion, the best armor for the entire mid-game, which the mid-game probably won't last that long, but for the ranged relic, you're going to be wanting to use Void for most of it. So if you're going Asgarnia, which if you're not going Asgarnia as a ranger, I don't know what the hell you're doing. Just skipping crossbows, I guess. Void is going to be really, really solid, even without Elite Void. Since accuracy is going to be so little of a problem until, you know, later on, you will care about accuracy, especially when you're doing raids and such. But before that, Void is going to be your best option. So, and it also has the benefit of being free. So you're just going to have to do pest control, but with the point increases, the minigame increases, it's not going to be too bad. I think you get up to 8 times, which means like what, at a base level, the hard boat will be what, 40 points per game or something. I think it's 5 points per game standard at the hard boat, but you know, maybe you're doing probably you're doing the boats before that, but even then it's going to be really fast. So the main thing you're going to want to pay attention to here is that you will need 42 attack, strength, defense, hit points, range, magic, and 22 prayer to use this. So make sure to go to Asgarnia, pick up your Void, and it's really not too bad. Like if we compare Black D'Hide Body here, compare the defensive bonuses. It's actually better, equal in Crush and Magic, but better in, it's worse in range defense, but better in the other melee defenses. So it's really not bad armor, all things considered, and you know, I would highly recommend using it even over God D'Hide, because I think accuracy is not going to be much of an issue, especially when you have plus 100% accuracy. You're going to have doubled accuracy with the range relic. So Void is probably going to be your go-to until you get Missouri, to be honest. Like, I might play around with it some, maybe with some God D'Hide, but definitely over Black D'Hide, and that also makes it really easy to acquire. If, for some god-awful reason, you're not going Asgarnia, I'm not judging you, I promise. Black D'Hide is going to be by far the easiest to get from the Deranged Archaeologist, something that you will be able to get fairly early on. If you do go Wildy, Crazy Arc has red D'Hide, I believe, instead of black, so it will be easier to acquire and easier to wear, but you're going to be getting levels so fast anyways, you're going to want to get your hands on some Black D'Hide. And then if you're looking for chaps, it's actually way harder to acquire. It's pretty much only going to be Hard Casket, because Hydra's going to be way down the line. Hard Casket's the only way unless you craft it. If you just want to get some armor when you're, you know, really early on and want to get some basic range armor, Green D'Hide is pretty easy to get at least. You can farm it from the Berthope Archers in Asgarnia. You can also get it from Medium Clues, but probably just want to buy it. It's really cheap from the... You could do Champions Guild. It's actually cheaper in Narda, but, you know, it's not like 200 GP more. Who cares? And then the Green D'Hide Body is actually not that easy to get, apparently. You could go to Prifdinus or a Medium Clue. But, once again, by far the easiest to just go buy it from the Oziak. Go buy it from Oziak in Edgeville, 10k. Get your hands on it. So it might be a case where, you know, I might do the same. I might get Green D'Hide and then just go to Pest Control and, you know, get all my stats till I can get Void. And then I'm going to be using Void probably until I get Missouri. Okay, so let's talk offhands. You pretty much got 2 things you're going to want to really shoot for as far as damage. If you know, early game, if you're looking for accuracy, I think, you know, God Books, if you can. The Odium Ward, I believe, or is it Malediction Ward? Okay, Odium Ward. It does also give for range strength, which is really not bad. So if you do go wilderness, this is a good option. It just can be probably a little bit of a pain to acquire. But the main two we're going to be talking about are the Buckler and the Dragonfire Ward. So honestly, Buckler's probably going to be easier to acquire if you're familiar with raids. It's fairly common from raids, you know, not Prayer Scroll common, but it's on the more common side. And you get a nice, juicy 10 range strength and 18 range accuracy, and really not bad defensive stats, and really good range defensive stats. Dragonfire Ward has pretty similar stats. It's got a +8 to range strength versus the +10, and gets a +15 accuracy instead of +18. So just slightly worse on the offensive capabilities. However, you can see here it's slightly better in everything, and a pretty decent chunk here in range defense. Better in every defensive category, as well as give you Dragonfire protection. So this is specific really to Fremennik. So it's either Zaya for Buckler, Fremennik for Dragonfire Ward, or Wilderness for Odium Ward. And if none of those, really, you don't have too many options. You just have to go with something, you know, like a Obby Shield or something, just for extra defense. And it is not that easy to make. Keep in mind, it takes 90 smithing to create. So it's not actually, or you could pay Oziak, forgot about that, for 1.25 mil. And even though Vorkath is pretty fucking easy, like, let's be honest, even with the boosted drop rates, it's not going to be that common. So as you can see here, Skeletal Visage, which is what you'll be hunting, will still be at 5 times drop rate, 1 out of 1,000. So on rate, you'd still have to kill 1,000 Vorkath to get your Skeletal Visi. Now, you know, you may get spooned, who knows, or you may go dry, but just keep that in mind, that even with quick kills, you're still going to have to kill, you know, could possibly have to kill 1,000 Vorkath or more to get the Skeletal Visage. So this is the Cox loot table here. Buckler's in the second most common category, tied with the DHCB, which would actually be a pretty good upgrade over the Rune crossbow, even though ACB and ZCB are going to be what you're looking for, or Twisted Bow, obviously. But yeah, so it's actually pretty common here. 1 out of 17. That's assuming a purple chance. So yeah, 5.8%. Solo raids, you know, normally in the main game you might get 3% or so. But with the 5 times drop rate, you know, if my math is accurate, that's like a 15% chance. So it's actually not too bad. So the only useful range damage ring is going to be the Venator ring, which will require Desert as well as Fremennik, because, you know, you're going to have to be able to get the DK rings to use the icon. And yeah, I mean, this is a nice to have ring. If you got Fremennik, it's something to shoot for. Ultimately, though, it's not something that, like, should shift your entire region focus. It's only +2 range damage. But it does make up for that 2 range damage you'd be missing. So this would, with this, it would actually tie the Buckler for range strength. And then, of course, we got the Anguish if you do go Kandarin. 5 range strength here, 15 accuracy, 2 prayer, nothing crazy. Okay, and then discussing weapons beyond the Rune crossbow, you do have the Dragon Hunter crossbow as kind of a side grade, like, useful if you're going to fight some dragons, and it does allow you to shoot dragon bolts at least, but it's really not going to help you that much. It's only slight increase to range accuracy otherwise. Armadillo crossbow is going to be what you're shooting for after Rune crossbow. This will give you the ability to shoot dragon bolts, gives you a slight range increase from 90 accuracy to 100, but really what we care about here is the fact that you will get the spec, 50% spec, which will double your chance of the enchanted bolt special attack, the proc, you know what I mean. So each time you spec, let's say you're doing an Onyx bolt, which will have a 22% with the relic, then that one shot will have a 44% chance of proccing. And of course, this comes from Ziliana. No way around it there. Zerai crossbow, not much to speak on here. Obviously, this is like your main goal other than the Twisted Bow if you go range relic. Will give you a really nice benefit to all the procs, especially rubies, onyx, and diamonds. And yeah, you'll just need the horn and 250 shards from Nex. So this is why Asgarnia is like the main range region. Another little side grade here, I'd call it, from the Rune crossbow is the Dragon crossbow. It only gives a +4 range accuracy, but really you care about it for the Dragon bolt usage if you want to use Dragon bolts. But it's not even that easy to come by. You're going to have to make the unstrung by getting the Dragon limbs, which only come from Rune dragons or Addy dragons. So yeah, I don't really recommend, gunning for this, but if it's something you want to go for, and once again, this is only open to you if you have Fremenic, so you will need Fremenic, and even then, probably not a great idea. Okay, and then armor-wise, the only armor I feel like that's relevant beyond Void is Missouri. So, this is completely my opinion looking at the DPS and the accuracy and everything. Once you get Missouri, then you can start thinking about putting away your Void. The only thing that's going to be slightly more annoying is that you actually lose quite a bit of defense here. So, like, if we compare the Void Knight top here, you see 45s across the board, and Missouri actually loses defense, even in pretty low magic defense here, in exchange for just straight up range strength and good range accuracy. So you're going to want to fortify this as soon as possible. Because as you can see here, the fortified version, look, now you get a nice, huge increase for every defense, especially magic. It goes from +25 to +74 magic defense, as well as gives an additional prayer bonus. And this will be the same for all the Missouri pieces. You're going to want to fortify that as soon as possible for all the defensive bonuses, as well as prayer. And then the only other piece of equipment I guess I haven't talked about is the boots, which are not very important, but if you want to go for it, you will need Asgarnia for the Pegasians, or you could just go for Rangers. Rangers are they're a +8 range accuracy. Pegasians are a +12. Like, that's it. And they give some slightly better defensive bonuses. Like, Pegasians are such a meme. They're barely better than Rangers. And even then, the boots are like the least important of your worries for the range build. Okay, so finally, we're just going to give a quick rundown of the areas and why I recommend Kourend Asgarnia Desert. So the desert, you are there mainly for the Missouri, if you're doing range relic, but also the Lightbearer, actually, because that's going to give you a lot more spec when you have an ACB or a ZCB. Now, there is a spec, I know there's a spec relic, but still really nice to have. Maybe you get it before the relic, maybe, it could still be important to have fast spec regeneration. But either way, I mean, the desert's a cracked area anyways, and it also allows you to farm, if you do go Zerend, oh my god. If you do go Zaya or Kourend, Asgarnia and Desert, this will give you a way to farm the Dragon Bolts, because you will need access to the Leviathan. Sorry, my brain is struggling here. Asgarnia is going to be the single most important area for ranged, unless you just really, really don't want to do crossbows and hate Void, if you hate pest control, then that's the only reason. But other than that, it's all about that pest control, as well as access to the ACB and the ZCB, as well as the Armadyl plates, because you can still get Missouri without Asgarnia, and you won't lose out on any damage, but you will lose out on pretty significant defensive bonuses, as well as prayer bonus. But yeah, as I've said before, if you're not doing crossbows with the range relic, you're doing something wrong. And finally, we have Kourend, which is all about Cox, basically, for the Buckler and Rigor. That's the main reason. I forgot to mention you do need Rigor. However, there was a relic tease of the curses, ancient curses, which is, the alternate spellbook. So there is a really, really, I mean, it's actually stronger than Rigor, alternative to Rigor. However, depending on what relics that goes up against, it's still, ultimately, the DPS is possibly still not worth it. I think it's actually still better DPS to go with the Guardian, which people have said is in the same tier as that relic, the one where it's like a thrall that hits 15s. But if you really, really just hate Cox and you want to choose a different area, like Kandarin, for instance, wouldn't it be terrible, or Fremenic, then you know, that will give you an option that you can still have a really strong range prayer and you don't need to do raids. However, this will also give you access to the DHCB, as well as a chance at the Twisted Bow. Nothing else much to comment on, but I would say that I am still conflicted. I'm 99% locked in on Karen Asgardian Desert, but if I did minus one, I would minus Karen, add Fremennik. The only caveat is I would have to choose the Ancient Curses, because I need to have either Rigor or the whatever the other range prayer is. But Fremennik would still be a good pick if you minus Karen, because that will still give you an option to get a really strong range offhand, and give you the best in slot range ring. So with the ward and the ring, that will equal the buckler in terms of range damage. And if you go Fire Sale, which you should go Fire Sale if you're being range relic, which will allow you infinite Onyx Bolt ease, picking Fremennik will give you a max house. So like, that's not range relic specific, but that's just something to keep in mind. This is solid for range relic, and it would also give you the ability to get a max house, which would be super nice, just saying. And with the Demonic Thrones, I think it's something like, what is it, like 600 mil XP an hour. Like, it's insane. And then probably the last, like, reasonable pick, I would say, for range relic that I was thinking about for a long time would be Kandarin. And that's strictly just for the Zenite jewelry, and the fact that there's a lot of other various content here. Like, Kandarin's never a bad pick, because you also will get Piety, you'll get the other, you know, Zenite jewelry, you'll get actual decent magic options, because that's something I'm a little worried about. I will have no good magic options. This is like the magic area. So yeah, this is the last one I would pick. Any other area I think is totally not worth it. Even if you do want to do Taranwen, yeah, I mean, more power to you if you do. The blowpipe will still be good, but based on how they're rounding the numbers, crossbows are clearly going to be king here. And that's it, everyone. Thank you all for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please leave a comment down below if you have any ideas, any strategies, if I made any mistakes, or you just want to complain that you have to do more pest control. Please let me know, and I will see you all soon. If you guys want to see me playing leagues, or you want to hop along and join me, I will be there day one. I'm so excited. So if you do want to hop along and we can play together, I will be streaming it on Twitch, twitch.tv/Kevin, Qevon. The link is in the description. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you guys in there.